And we are back for part two with George Byers. George tells us about his rare earths project and experience in working in the community with people from the Lakota Sioux Nation. George, I know a friend of yours or colleague, Mark Paliza.
Mark and I know very well, know each other very well. And we had known each other in passing until the infamous date of 9/11. Mark and I had been briefing two U.S. senators in the Hart Senate office building and their staff when the 9/11 event happened. And Mark and I, it was a long story, but let's just say we successfully found a way to get to Richmond, Virginia, and the airport where we had a rental car. Getting from DC to Richmond was an adventure, but Mark and I have known each other quite well ever since. And when one of his daughters was going to school at Denver University, she would park her belongings in our basement in the summers when she was off at work. So we've become very good friends with Mark and Cindy.
We had dinner with Mark in New York a couple of days ago, and he mentioned the story about 9/11 and the being under was it an F-15 when the sonic boom hit?
We were walking in the street. We were actually, I think, walking down Pennsylvania Avenue, heading back to my hotel first from Capitol Hill. All the cabs had instantly vanished. Whoever could grab a cab did, and they were not allowed back into DC. So there were no cabs to be found. Everybody was on foot, and suddenly we heard the sonic booms overhead. We didn't realize at the time those were sonic booms. We could see smoke arising from toward the Pentagon. We didn't know what had happened, what it was. And we didn't realize until listening to the radio the next day. By then, we were driving through Tennessee on Interstate 40. We didn't realize then that those were F-15s that had been scrambled from Joint Base Andrews. And those were the sonic booms we heard overhead. And we were still unaware that first day, of course, and then they started to piece the evidence together on the second day of the other United flight that crashed in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, harsh day in history. I assume the F-15s were occupying the airspace.
I'm sorry again.
The F-15s, they were occupying the airspace, I assume.
Well, yeah, they were just flying overhead cover for DC. They didn't know what else to expect.
Yeah. I'm trying to. I know you've got a huge history in Wyoming. Tell me a little bit about your time between there and South Dakota. I know you have had some experience around Devil's Tower.
Well, what I'm doing now, I was an employee for a number of years of a company called Rare Element Resources. And we have what we believe and what we now believe that the Department of Energy and the U.S. Department of Defense have both concluded is that we have the best rare earths deposit in the lower 48 states, maybe all of at least 49 states, nothing in Hawaii. And it's called the Bear Lodge deposit in Crook County, New Mexico, or Crook County, Wyoming. If you envision the Black Hills as an hourglass with the fat end on the bottom, which is in the South Dakota piece, and it tilted on its edge a little bit, the smaller top part of the hourglass is the Bear Lodge Mountains in very northeastern Wyoming, in Crook County, just north of the little town of Sundance. Interstate 90 goes through Sundance, and our Sundance is the county seat, and our project is 9 miles north of Sundance. Interesting thing about the project site, one of the highly spoken of things today for the next generation of nuclear power generation are small modular reactors. And the very first small modular reactor ever used in the United States was on a hilltop about 3/4 of a mile from our mine site. It was the U.S. Air Force out of Ellsworth Air Force Base, had a radar site there, and it was powered by a very small nuclear reactor. So we are very fortunate to be in Wyoming with this project, and we've advanced it. We've drilled it to pieces. And at the point we are now, we ended up, like many people happens to them these days, is we were hamstrung by the NEPA process, the National Environmental Policy Act process, by the U.S. Forest Service. The project is on lands, the surface of which is managed by the Forest Service. Even though it's going to be an extremely small mine, a small open pit mine, you still got to do an environmental impact statement. We ended up getting a 1.5 years behind, the Forest Service did, on getting to a draft EIS being published in the Federal Register. So we had to call timeout on that project in January of 2016, at which time essentially all of us became contractors, just consultants. We kept the project alive, however. We're bringing it back. We have a great partner in General Atomics.
Oh, nice. And
General Atomics does a lot of things, including building the Predator drone. They build the electromagnetic aircraft launch systems now being employed on aircraft carriers. They're involved in high-level magnetic transportation, rail guns. So they're a major defense contractor. They're involved in things like fusion energy research at Sandia National Lab, at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. And they have become a 52% partner of ours. So they're the primary partner. 15 months ago, we got a $22 million grant from the Department of Energy to build a demonstration scale rare earth processing and separation plant in the little town of Upton, Wyoming, south of Sundance. And it's an interesting site for that separation and processing plant because we have a transcontinental railroad, a major east-west U.S. highway, we have natural gas line, we have power, we have a very willing community, and it's all a 40-mile truck haul from the mine site itself. So that's going to begin construction on the demonstration scale plant later this summer when the ground conditions warm up, weather warms up, and the ground conditions are right.
Nice, nice. Congratulations. I was just up in Wyoming yesterday, up in Cheyenne, at the Wyoming Mining Association meeting, and I was unaware of how rich in resources, because my knowledge of Wyoming is in uranium, but I was shocked at the resource wealth of Wyoming and as you say, coal, uranium, rare earth. Um, and here's my lack of knowledge. Largest producer of material used in baking soda. Everything.
Well, yeah, Southwest Wyoming has a trona industry, and people wonder what trona is, but it is the basic component of baking soda and toothpaste, but it's used in glass making.
Yeah.
And One of the probably one of the world's two largest trona producing regions is in the area of Rock Springs and Green River. But Wyoming is a leader in coal. It's a leader, even with the war on coal, Wyoming is still a leader in coal, leader in trona, a leader in uranium. It's going to be a leader in rare earths very soon. A leader in a mineral called bentonite, and
For the uninformed, used in kitty litter.
well, it's used in kitty litter, but it's used in oil and gas drilling too.
Yes, yes,
So,
very important commodity.
and it's really interesting. People don't realize this. Rare earths are used in the oil and gas industry in fracking, because you've got a couple of elements, gadolinium being one, and it is used to capture neutrons so that the operator on the surface can use high tech to track the frac to see how it's moving underground. So rare earths can be applied in almost all of those industries, even in the coal mining industry with the high tech use in loading and in the equipment, staging trucks and so forth.
And you've worked a lot with the various people in Wyoming on your projects from the Legislative Assembly, and the senators as well, correct?
Well, in the congressional delegation with Senators Barrasso and Lummis, and with new Congressman Harriet Hageman. I was on the board of the Mountain States Legal Foundation with Congressman Hageman for about, I don't know, 15 to 20 years. Got to know her then. She's as capable on her feet as she is riding a horse or firing a rifle. And she called me up about 15 or 16 months ago and said, I'm thinking of running for Congress. I need to know all about your project. So we have had several long discussions with her to bring her up to speed. So with her being on the Natural Resources Committee in the House, she's going to be a very able spokesman for rare earths. So we are very happy with that.
Nice.
Senator Barrasso has done the same. So is then Congressman Lummis, now Senator Lummis. They've all stayed very aware, very interested, very supportive of Bear Lodge, and the Governor Gordon has been, the Wyoming Business Council, the Wyoming Energy Authority. We just got a grant of $4.4 million from the Wyoming Energy Authority to help with our demonstration scale project.
Wow.
So we have a great deal of support statewide. In fact, a few years ago, the legislature passed unanimously, and then Governor Matt Mead signed a resolution favoring Bear Lodge and basically telling the Forest Service to get with it. Let's get this draft EIS done. Well, they were very good about the resolution. The Forest Service didn't pay much attention to it, though. But
I like. I have a great deal of respect for Barrasso. He's been very clear on his support of the need for nuclear as a component of the energy supply and the value Wyoming can bring. I think they've got a fabulous governor. I understand it's the start of his second term, and that's always a good thing. You can do a lot in your second term, but uh, really, I think positioning Wyoming as such a leader.
Well, yeah, Governor Gordon was formerly state treasurer, as was Senator Lummis. She was formerly state treasurer. They're both very, very good with numbers. Senator Gordon also was one by virtue of his position as treasurer. He was on the board of the Wyoming Business Council, so he got in-person briefings from us at that time before he ran for governor about Bear Lodge and its potential.
Yeah, yeah. No, I I love Wyoming. I know you share that opinion as well. It's a fabulous place, wonderful people, incredibly resource rich. It's
Yep.
I yeah, it was a great experience for me to spend some time there this September out staking claims and getting to know the ranchers and couldn't have at the time of my life.
It's interesting. The two probably the most powerful members of the legislature. One is Senator Ogden Driscoll from Devil's Tower. His family's owned the land surrounding the nation's first national monument since the early 1880s.
Wow.
He even remembers his dad negotiating with Steven Spielberg when they filmed the movie Close Encounters.
Wow.
Um, uh, but he is right there. He's been a very strong supporter since before he ran for the Senate. Uh, the Republican Majority Leader in the House of Representatives, Chip Nyman, is a rancher, but he has a trucking business. He hauled water and oil and gas up to our drill site for many years in the 2004 to 2012 when we were drilling up there. He is very well read into Bear Lodge as well. So we've got two very capable, powerful members of the legislature who don't need an education. They understand our story.
Yeah, they understand the sector. They understand that the value to the community and the taxpayers. Um, want to wrap it up, but I want to talk about one fun story, if you want. Donovan Sprague.
Donovan Sprague is he became a good friend, and he is a Lakota Sioux. He's a fully enrolled member of the Cheyenne River Sioux. I was up there in 2009, I believe, and several people said, a guy you got to meet is Donovan Sprague. He's over in Rapid City. I finally arranged to meet with him. He's an artist. He's on the board of the Crazy Horse Memorial. He was on the board of the Black Hills National Forest. He teaches at Black Hills State University, and he teaches at the University of Iowa. And he is also the great nephew of Crazy Horse. And he was able to help us engage with various American Indian tribes and their representatives, because we have to have consultation, because we're 25 or so miles away from Devil's Tower, and there were some concerns, but we've walked them up our hill. They've been to the mine site, and we've done some education work with them. But Donovan, he and I were talking one day over lunch in Rapid City, and I said, I need a Lakota name. And he said, well, what do you want to be? And I said, well, I play golf, but I'm a lousy putter, like all of the duffers like I am. And I said, how about a Lakota name for three putt? And he laughed and he says, well, we Lakota didn't play a lot of golf. He says, we were busy chasing buffalo and fighting you guys back in the 1800s. So he says, but we did have a tomahawk. And he starts doing this, like whack, whack, whack. He says, and we would give whacks to people. He said, a whack is sort of like a putt. So I'm going to name you three whacks. So my Lakota name is Yamni Kapaka, which is three whacks. But just a really good guy. Donovan Sprague, he's still there in Rapid. And he's got a son who's a very gifted musician who will open, his band will open for people like Garth Brooks and others around the country. So good
Wow.
guy.
Well, I hope to have the pleasure of meeting them. We do a bit of work in the area, and I I have a Tlingit name that was affectionately given to me. Uh, yeah, I was doing a project, and they started calling me White Wolf, which
Okay.
it's pronounced Klekoch, and yeah, I love it. So I was honored, but it's just an affectionate name. But George, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, you're quite welcome, Janet.
Yes, thank you. And then once again, your Lakota name?
Yamni Kapaka, I think. It's something like that.
It's it it's a
But it's
pleasure.
three for three whacks.
Relax. Thank you. And thanks again to everybody.